Now, I can go back a little bit and tell you a little bit of my personal testimony. I was saved at the age of 8. Really saved. I remember riding horseback in West Texas. We got down off of our horses and we prayed, and I received the Lord. But I can go back further than that to let you know that just like your life, my life wasn't easy either. My parents were divorced when I was 5 years old. And this was very hard on me. My father left, and I lived with my mother and my sister from 5 years on. And of course, if you come from that kind of a situation, you realize what it does to you psychologically. And when I started school, I was very scared of everything because, your security has just been jerked right out from under you. And I remember from the first grade, the second grade, the third grade, the fourth grade, and the fifth grade, every time we had a test, some kind of test, I would cry. I would just cry because I had nothing behind me. No backing. No security. No nothing. This is the kind of shape I was in. Is the Lord's mercy. Then, saved at 8, went on through high school. And in high school, I was successful in several things. No need to mention what. But it was by being successful in those things in several different areas that it kind of propped me up a little bit. But then when I went to college, I found out everybody in college had been a star in high school. So, I hit the bottom. My first year in college, I went to the bottom. I just hit a deep depression. And the whole thing of the insecurity of my father leaving and everything and of growing up in such a way, it hit me so hard in my first year in college. And I had no choice but to turn to the Lord. I had no choice but that was the only place I had to go was to the Lord. And so I was... My father was a lawyer. I had 3 uncles that were lawyers. Eventually now I have 2 brothers that are lawyers, 3 brothers that are lawyers, 5 cousins that are lawyers. Everybody were lawyers. So I was in pre-law at Texas Tech University in Lubbock, Texas. I was going to be a lawyer too. But as I more and more began to turn to the Lord, at that time I was in the Southern Baptist denomination. I did not know anything of life that much. I just knew I had to have the Lord. But the more I would pray in the feeble way I did, accidentally no doubt, I would hit the switch every now and then. I didn't know about my spirit. I didn't even know Christ was in me. But I was desperate to pray, so I touched Him occasionally. It became clear then I could not continue in pre-law. I had no burden to go that direction. Well, of course, in a denomination, there's only one other thing to do, and that is to serve the Lord in some kind of capacity. So, I went forward in the invitation and said, I want to serve the Lord. So, then I began to prepare my college in that direction to go to seminary. So I graduated from college in 1957. And I was 21 years old. I should have been beginning college at that time instead of graduating. And at the same time, not too long after that, then my mother died, which was the only home I had. And so by the time I was 21, in a sense, I was really on my own. Or a little past that. Then when I went to the seminary, Southwestern Baptist Theological Seminary in Fort Worth, Texas, the largest seminary in the world. And it still is, but it doesn't mean much. I went there. It didn't take me long. I think it was because I had been so desperate to touch the Lord, to seek the Lord because of no other words to use, but of the insecurity that had built up because of my family's divorce and been raised in the way that I had. I'd been so desperate to touch the Lord, I think I knew a little bit of how to touch the Lord. A little bit. Just very teeny. Anyway, it didn't take me one semester to realize this whole seminary thing was a farce. It was a union card. That's the way I looked at it. I told her it's a union card. I realized I'll go ahead, I'll get the degree because you got to have your union card. There's nothing there. Nothing there really for the Lord. The only thing I received, I got the degree, the only thing that's worth anything was Greek and Hebrew. The rest of it is not worth anything. Of course, this is my opinion. Others may have another opinion, but this is mine. Anyway, so I graduated from the cemetery. It's amazing if you would just be around that kind of place. Young men come in burning for the Lord, loving the Lord, burning. Of course, all they know is to preach the gospel. This is what Southern Baptist are very strong for. Preach the gospel. And of course, the only gospel they know is redemption, salvation from hell to go to heaven. But you still get saved. It's still, still not bad. And they come burning, but by the time they leave, they're dead. It's a real cemetery. There's no such thing as that kind of school in the Bible. The church should be the place where we learn the Word to the uttermost. And it is the place. I'd take any member here knows far more of the Word than the greatest professor in any cemetery. I guarantee it. Where can you find Bible schools and seminaries in the Bible? It's not there. But you find the church. It's in the church that the Word is our living faith. And the Word becomes part of our being. And no doubt, this is our true case today. Okay, when I graduated, it was in January. Because the Master of Theology degree that I took was a 3-year course, but I had crammed it into 3.5 years. And therefore, I graduated in I meant what I said. I crammed a 3-year course into 3.5 years. So, I graduated in January. I graduated in January of 1961. In January of 1961. Okay, I have to mention just a little bit. Before this time, I had no desire, although I got the so-called degree that the pastors get. I had some experience both in leading singing and in preaching at the so-called youth-led revivals that were conducted by Southern Baptists among their churches in Texas. And that's what I would do all summer, every summer. Before I got out of college, I did it. Every summer, we would go to these churches, and it would be conducted through the Department of Student Work in Dallas. I mean, they got the organization, and we would go everywhere, holding youth-led but church-wide revivals. And I started off leading the singing. Eventually, I ended up speaking some. But the more I was in those revivals, the less I had any desire to pastor. I mean, we were just young guys, 21, 22 years old. We would go to these churches, and these pastors of some of these large churches would come to us young guys and just pour out all of their... I said how hard it is, and the people, and this and that. They're all, even if they had any experience at all, they would explain just how fleshly the people are. There's no way to go on. This and that. This is all I ever heard from the pastors. Nothing positive. So I decided from that as a pastor, it wasn't for me. I didn't make any actual decision. I just never had any desire. I never entered that way. I was never ordained ever. Praise the Lord. That doesn't mean, for those who have, there's any problem, but I just never was. So when I graduated, it was in January. And so I continued on to do more graduate work for one semester. Then, in June, or should I say earlier than that, a little before June of 1961, I was called to Dallas because they wanted to offer me the position of the Baptist Student Union Director. You're probably not familiar. Some of you may be at BSU. The BSU Director at a Baptist college in Plainview, Texas, which is up in the Panhandle. So, actually, I had been active in the BSU in college, etc. So this seemed quite good to me, to do student work, to work with students. And so in June of 1961, I went to this campus, Wayland Baptist College in Plainview, Texas. When I got there in June of 61, there was a note. When they showed me my office, and I went into my office, there was a note on my desk from a junior in the college. Actually, he was just, I believe, finishing his junior year. A note on my desk welcomed me to the school because my title also as BSU director was Director of Religious Activities. And actually, that's what was written over the door of my office, Director of Religious Activities. And we had them too, believe me. And it so happened there was a group of those who were either going to be preachers or missionaries that was in a certain kind of club on campus that were taking a mission trip. During that time, during the summer, I think it was to the Northwest at the time, and the president of that group is the one, they were already on the trip, but he left me a note on my desk, welcomed me to the school, and signed Benson Phillips. And that was the first time I heard that word, that name, Benson Phillips. And so when he came back, I wasn't there. I was gone again. I just stayed a little bit during the summer, and then I had obligations still with these kind of revival meetings the rest of the summer. But as agreed, I'd go there and get set up and then take care of that. Then I came back in the fall of 1971, and of course there is where I met Benson. And eventually, I think all of you know, a number of brothers in the churches in Texas were in that school. I think I can list a good number of them. Benson Phillips, Ben McPherson, Ray Graver, Tim House, Jim Coleman, of course Rodney Phillips, and all their wives. They were all there, just about. Bobby Allen, if you know him in Houston. Anyway, there's about 20 of us. 20 of us that was in that school at that time that I think are still in recovery. Barry Morgan, by the way, also went to Wayland Baptist College. Yeah, but he graduated in May of 61 before I got there in June of 61. So I never met him. But it was interesting, he was there. Lusby Kirk was also in Wayland Baptist College, but he just lightly touched us at that time, and he was touched later on in Lubbock, Texas. So we had the first year there. Okay, you know, we had our religious activities. And I worked with the students. Actually, you have to realize this school was not that large. You want to guess how many students? 600. Can you believe the Lord got all of us together in that one little school? Of course, this is how things got started in Texas. Anyway, 1961, we went through our thing. We did all of our little activities. And we went through the summer of 61. And we're getting ready for, or I should say, then into 62 to finish that school year, fall of 61, spring of 62. Then came back in the fall of 62. It was Benson's senior year. Oh, I should also say Elton Carr was there. But he wasn't there the first year. He came back in the fall of 62. And he had been there for 2 years, and he left to go out to pastor. After 2 years in college, he went in Oregon to pastor. And by the time he tried that for 2 years, he was totally defeated. But he came by my office and introduced himself to me. Of course, he was older than the rest of them. Actually, I wasn't that old myself. I went there, I think I was 25 when I went there. And, of course, in November of 61, Brad was born. Our oldest son, Brad, was born in November 61 there in Plainview, Texas. Then in 62, in the fall, you do all your things. You got all your preschool retreats and all of that stuff and everything. But I enjoyed student work. I still had no desire to get in any kind of pastorate. I did do some speaking here and there. But when it came to, now you have to realize, you see, Brother Lee is coming to Los Angeles at this time, 62. The fall of 62, Brother Lee comes to Los Angeles in December, or the beginning of December of 62. And he and John Ingalls and Brother Chang, I believe, right at the beginning of 62, began to pray. And they came together every morning to pray. This is December of 62. And they prayed, Lord, you must stir up the seeking ones all over this country. You must stir them up. And they prayed every day for 4 weeks until they had the conference at the close of December of 1962. They prayed in this way every day.